So I'm 28 years old, and I've got this older brother who's 30. About 2 weeks ago, he came over and dropped a huge request on me. He asked if I could be the legal guardian for his little boy, who's just 6 months old now. Here's the deal. My brother had to chat with me because his job is making him move to another city. And his wife, who's 29, is spending a lot of her time in the hospital getting chemo treatments. She's fighting stage 2 liver cancer, which they found out about last month. My brother really can't turn down this job opportunity since it pays way more than what he's making right now, and they need every penny for his wife's medical bills. They've worked out a plan with his wife's parents to take care of her while he's away working in another state for 5 days a week, coming home only on weekends. But her parents are getting on in years, and it's just too much to expect them to look after both his wife and their little boy. That's where I come into the picture. Since it's really just the two of us left in our family, I was the person he turned to for help. Losing our parents in our early 20s meant we've only really had each other to rely on. He's in marketing, and I'm a high school teacher, so it's not like we're rolling in dough. Plus, my life's already packed with my job, and I'm pretty exhausted most days without adding the job of looking after my nephew into the mix. But saying no to my brother was something I just couldn't bring myself to do. We're all we've got, and I couldn't bear the thought of causing any rift between us. There was also this nagging doubt in the back of my mind about agreeing to be the legal guardian, mainly because of some pretty wild stories I've heard about my sister-in-law. Our town's pretty small, so gossip spreads like wildfire. A few years back, even before my brother got married, a coworker of mine shared a story about her cousin getting tangled up in some serious drama. Apparently, his wife had tricked him with a paternity fraud, claiming he was the father of a child that wasn't his, and now he was suing her. Hearing stuff like that made me pause and think twice about the whole guardianship situation. So, there was this whole bunch of rumors flying around town, and one name that kept coming up over and over again was my now sister-in-law's. To be honest, I wasn't exactly sure what her role was or how deep she was in it, but it was pretty clear she was mixed up in some shady business. She was somehow involved in this whole mess, and it turns out she had a hand in keeping it quiet for a couple of years after the baby was born. The story goes that when the kid was about 2, my sister-in-law's best friend, who's the mom of the kid, started pushing really hard for marriage. She wanted to stop working and stay home with their son. The dad's mom got a bit suspicious because of how aggressively she was pushing for it, and that's when they decided to do a paternity test. Then, boom, it all came out. My sister-in-law had been super involved in the scam. She hooked her best friend up with her cousin who worked at the hospital. This cousin would sneakily take cash from the best friend and the dad, making sure their little secret stayed hidden. So basically, my sister-in-law and her best friend were conning this guy for his money. While the best friend faced legal issues for the scam, my sister-in-law managed to dodge any trouble. Fast forward a bit, and my brother tells me he's met someone. Turns out to be the very woman from all those rumors. I warned him back when he first mentioned her, telling him all about the gossip and advising him to be cautious. But he was totally convinced she was innocent, choosing to trust her over the rumors. I didn't want to push it, so I backed off. And they ended up getting married and having a kid within a year. I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to rock their happy boat. Then last month, she got hit with a stage 2 liver cancer diagnosis, which explains her frequent hospital visits. Even with all the stuff I'd heard before, I hadn't brought it up again. But when my brother asked me to be their kid's legal guardian, all those old concerns came flooding back. I decided I didn't want to get tangled in any drama, especially with all this stuff hanging over our heads. So there I was, agreeing to be the guardian for my nephew, but I had this big cloud of doubt hanging over me because of all the whisperings and rumors about my brother's wife. He wasn't exactly thrilled when I brought up my concerns. He kind of thought I was throwing shade at his wife for no good reason. But hey, they've been together for ages, and I get it. It's tough to hear stuff like that about someone you're close to. But I couldn't shake the feeling, so I laid it out straight. No paternity test, no deal on the guardianship front. I just couldn't wade into potentially murky waters without some clarity. We went back and forth a bit, and he wasn't exactly jumping for joy. But eventually, he caved and agreed to get the test done. Then, like he disappeared off the face of the earth. 2 weeks of absolute silence. Suddenly, he hits me up out of the blue, saying the whole Guardian thing is off, and he's sticking around instead. Color me confused. I'm like, dude, what's the deal? And he's all, stay out of it, before hanging up. That's not like him at all. He's usually Mr. Nice Guy, so I'm left scratching my head, wondering what the heck happened. I didn't want to poke the bear, especially since the only other person who might know what's up is his wife. And let's just say, chatting with her was at the bottom of my to-do list. But after a day of radio silence from my bro, curiosity got the better of me. So I muster up the courage and give my sister-in-law a ring, bracing myself for whatever comes next. She picks up and immediately goes off on me like a firecracker, blaming me for torpedoing her marriage. I'm sitting there, phone in hand, totally gobsmacked, trying to piece together why she's flipping her lid. It's slowly dawning on me that the paternity test I insisted on might have unearthed some major skeletons in their closet. Honestly, I was just trying to give myself a bit of breathing space to figure out if I was ready to step into this guardian role, especially with the chance of stepping into a drama bomb if the kid turned out not to be my brother's. But now, it looks like my push for some DNA clarity might have blown the lid off something she was desperate to keep hush-hush. And here I am, feeling like the world's biggest heel because my actions, which were really just me trying to protect my own peace of mind, might have wrecked my brother's family life. And to top it all off, she's dealing with cancer. So yeah, I'm stuck here wondering if I was the jerk for pushing the paternity test angle, especially since it seems to have led to a whole heap of trouble I never saw coming. Update 1. Hey folks, just gotta say a huge thanks for all the kind words and support you've thrown my way. It's been a real eye-opener to see that not everyone's out there ready to jump on me for choosing to look after numero uno in this whole crazy saga. So here's the latest. I finally got the lowdown from my brother on what's been going down since I floated the idea of a paternity test. He heads home after our chat, thinking he's just gonna have a straightforward convo with his wife about the test. Boy, was he off the mark. She absolutely lost it at the suggestion, acting like it was the biggest insult ever. She's all, are you kidding me? This is like saying I'm still the scam artist everyone thinks I am, duping my own hubby. So yeah, she was totally against the idea, pushing for any other solution but that. Her reaction was so intense, so out there, that even my bro started getting this nagging feeling that maybe something wasn't quite right. After stewing over it for a few days, stuck on what move to make next, he decides to just go for it, and gets the paternity test done on the down low, half hoping it doesn't turn his world upside down. And guess what? The results come in, and it's like a plot twist you see coming but still knocks you off your feet. Him and his kiddo? Not a match. The first time around, he's so floored by the results, he thinks there's gotta be some mistake, so he runs the test again. But nope. Round 2 and it's the same deal. No match. This revelation just floors him. His whole marriage, everything he thought was real, turns out to be a house of cards. He's shell-shocked, not having a clue how to even start this convo with his wife. He'd always shrugged off the whispers and rumors about her, even brushed me off when I tried to warn him. But now, it's like the universe is saying, told you so, and he's left to face the music that he was the one who had it all wrong. Now he's got to figure out how to deal with the fact that his marriage was nothing like he thought it was. It's a whole mess. And honestly, I feel for the guy. It's one thing to deal with rumors and hearsay, but it's a whole other ballgame when you're smacked with the truth like that. So, after my brother got those paternity test results back, he didn't just sit on that info. Nah, he decided it was time to have a real talk with his wife. You can imagine how that went down, right? Initially, she's all about denying everything, trying to wiggle her way out of the situation. But come on, when you're hit with the hard truth like that, where exactly can you run? My brother's standing there, pretty much having his world turned upside down, realizing the kid he's been pouring his heart into raising isn't biologically his. Eventually, his wife couldn't keep up the act anymore and spilled the beans. Here's the kicker. Right after they tied the knot, she went and had a fling with a buddy of hers while my brother was out of town. That fling got her pregnant. She decided to keep it all hush-hush because she figured the truth would blow their marriage to smithereens. But after finding out she was pregnant, she had this big epiphany that my brother was the one she truly wanted to be with. No one else. And guess what? She also fessed up about her part in that whole paternity scam drama from before, admitting she was the mastermind who hooked her bestie up with her hospital-working cousin. The only reason that whole charade came crashing down was cause the husband got a bit suspicious and got himself an independent paternity test from another hospital and boom, cat's out of the bag. So yeah, all those juicy gossips and rumors that had been floating around town about her, bang on the money. It's just nuts to think she knew all the hurt and mess cheating and lying could cause, but still dragged my brother through the mud. It's just, yuck, you know? And here's me, feeling a tad smug for nudging my brother towards getting that paternity test. If I hadn't, who knows if he'd ever have uncovered the whole web of lies. She was jobless when she married my brother, planning to chill at home as a stay-at-home mom, which pretty much left my brother as the main breadwinner, backing her up through thick and thin. So here's the thing. It's not like she suddenly had this big epiphany that my brother was Mr. Right and decided to ditch all her side action for a white picket fence and happily ever after. Nah, it was more like she found herself in a pickle because she got pregnant and basically had no other options. My brother's pretty convinced that's the real reason she decided to stick around. And honestly, I'm on the same page as him. If she was out there playing the field just 1 year into their marriage, it's pretty clear she wasn't head over heels for him. The main reason she hung around my brother was because he was the type to let bygones be bygones. He trusted her like nobody's business and was always there, wallet open, no questions asked. She was in it for herself, through and through. While my brother's been trying to digest this whole mess, I've had my suspicions about my sister-in-law for the longest time. But I kept my mouth shut because stirring up drama was the last thing I wanted, especially since my brother was totally smitten with her. When they dropped the bomb that they were expecting barely a year after saying, "I do," I clamped down on anything that might throw a wrench in their relationship. The idea of dropping some harsh truth that could potentially ruin what they had going on, especially with a baby on the way, just didn't sit right with me. And after my nephew was born, bad-mouthing my sister-in-law was out of the question. I couldn't risk my brother deciding he was done with me because of it. So I played the silent game, even though I figured the truth would come out one way or another eventually. The thing I regret the most? That I didn't step up and try to prevent all this heartache. My brother is now in the middle of divorce proceedings and battling for sole custody of his son. His wife's a wreck, claiming she's a changed woman and that she really loves him now. But you can't just hit the rewind button on stuff like this. On a personal note, I'm kinda relieved he's finally getting out of there, even if it's taken more time than it should have. The bit that makes me feel a tad uneasy is the timing of it all. Her dealing with cancer makes the whole situation extra complicated. But when it comes down to it, my brother deserves someone who's fully in it with him, cancer or not. And you better believe I've got his back all the way. Update 2. So my brother just dropped a bombshell on me about his wife and the real dad of his son. He swung by for a few drinks tonight and ended up spilling some pretty wild stuff. Turns out the dude his wife cheated on him with, who's also the biological father of his kid, has been hanging around them up until pretty recently. While we were chilling and he was letting off some steam, he mentioned how this guy was an old buddy of his wife's. And apparently, he's been carrying a torch for her for ages. But my sister-in-law decided to go ahead and marry my brother instead, because she figured her old crush didn't have his financial act together enough to meet her standards. She'd brought up this guy way back when she and my brother first started dating, but my brother never thought twice about it because he had total faith in her. She tried to brush off their post-marriage hookup as a one-time drunk mistake driven by emotions. But now, my brother's questioning everything she's ever told him. He's kicking himself for putting so much trust in her from the get-go, and wasting years defending her against anyone who dared to throw shade her way. Turns out all those naysayers were right on the money, and she was just in it for whatever cash she could get her hands on. And my brother was the one guy naive enough to take her word for everything, despite the rumors swirling around her. After he took off, I was feeling pretty low, thinking maybe if I'd been more insistent or done something to stop him from marrying her in the first place, he wouldn't be stuck in this mess now. But what's done is done. It's just revolting to think she kept this other dude in their lives, having him over for dinner, chatting it up like nothing happened, all while my brother was unknowingly playing dad to his kid. Hearing my brother recount how they'd all act like chummy old pals at these dinners, with him in the dark about the whole situation, just made my stomach turn. And all I could do was sit there and listen. So my brother just hit me with some wild news that's got my head spinning. Turns out the guy my sister-in-law had an affair with, aka the real dad of my brother's son, has been hanging around their lives up until not too long ago. My brother dropped by this evening needing to vent, and that's when he shared this crazy update with me. This dude was an old buddy of his wife's, and he's been carrying a torch for her for ages. But my sister-in-law decided to tie the knot with my brother instead, figuring her old flame didn't have enough dough to keep her happy. She had mentioned this guy to my brother way back when they first started dating. But my brother, being the trusting soul he is, never suspected a thing. When she finally came clean, she tried to brush it off as a one-time slip-up because they were drunk and got carried away. But now, my brother's questioning everything she's ever told him. He's kicking himself for ever trusting her and wasting so many years defending her to anyone who'd whisper doubts about her. Turns out, all those warnings were spot on. She was just in it for the cash, and my brother was the only one who couldn't see through her act. After he left, I was feeling pretty low, thinking maybe I could have saved him from all this mess if I'd just pushed him harder to rethink marrying her. But what's done is done. And it's just a messed up situation all around. It's wild that she kept in touch with the guy she cheated with, even having him and his wife over for dinner like they were all good pals. Meanwhile, my brother's been raising this guy's kid. It's just a whole lot of messed up. Thinking about what my brother's dealing with now just breaks my heart. I keep wondering how things might have been different if I'd managed to get him to see the truth about her before they got married. It's brutal that he's stuck in this nightmare because he fell for someone who never deserved his love in the first place. Now, with everything out in the open, I don't know what's going to happen with him and his son. This whole ordeal's gotta be messing with his head. He's still living with his son while his wife's crashing with her folks, yet she's over every day begging for another chance, playing the cancer card to keep him from walking away. It's gotta be tearing him up inside, especially since, deep down, he still has feelings for her, despite all the lies and betrayal. Hearing him reminisce about the good times with his wife today hit me hard. I wish there was more I could do to help him out of this mess, but I'm kind of stuck on the sidelines. All I can offer is to look after my nephew now and then, giving my brother a chance to pick up extra shifts and take on more work, hoping he can secure a better future for his son. But with the way things are, I'm not holding my breath for him getting full custody. It's just a sad, complicated situation all around. Honestly, I'm pretty sure the court's gonna want my nephew to spend as much time as possible with his mom, especially if her health takes a turn for the worse. From what I've heard, she's been losing her battle with cancer more and more over the past few months. At this stage, I'm all mixed up about how to feel about everyone in this mess, including myself. I did what I could to give my brother a heads up when he first started seeing my sister-in-law, but he wasn't having any of it. So, it's not like I didn't try to stop this train wreck before it happened. Still, that doesn't mean I can just brush off feeling somewhat responsible. When it comes down to it, it feels like every one of us adults has let my nephew down in some way, creating this huge mess. All I'm hoping for now is that somehow we can all learn from this disaster and end up as better people on the other side. Update 3. It's been about a week and a half since I last saw my brother. He's been super busy with work stuff, but he popped over today needing a big favor. He had this urgent appointment with his lawyer and needed someone to look after my nephew for a bit. Of course, I said yes. How could I not help him out with everything that's going on? After he got back from the lawyers, he spilled the latest drama. Turns out, his wife had blabbed to her friend, the real dad of her son, about the whole situation. And now this guy's ready to jump into the custody battle too. My brother's pretty stressed because if he doesn't play ball with his wife's demands, it's going to get even messier. She's trying to guilt trip him into making up, using her cancer as leverage, saying she might not have long left. She's trying to paint him as the bad guy for stirring up trouble with all these legal battles. But my brother knows this custody fight isn't about revenge. It's about making sure that if something does happen to her, her friend can't just swoop in and claim his son just because of biology. She's twisting the whole situation, making it all about her, which is just selfish beyond words. The only payback my brother's after with all this legal stuff is the divorce itself, because he's got too much self-respect to stay tied to someone who's used him like she has. They had a massive blowout over this just a couple of days back. She came over wanting to see her son, trying again to convince my brother to drop the legal stuff. When he stood his ground, she lost it, lashing out and making things even worse. My brother's convinced she dragged her friend into this just to get back at him, and honestly, I can't help but agree. What's even crazier is thinking about what this friend's wife must be feeling through all this. They've only been married for like 4 months. This whole situation is just a mess. But through it all, my nephew remains a little beacon of joy, totally clueless to the chaos around him. Seeing him so carefree today was a breath of fresh air. I just hope more than anything that he can hold on to that innocence and happiness. The poor kid doesn't deserve to get dragged through any of this drama, especially not at his age. Update 4. Hey folks, so today had its own set of drama. My sister-in-law decided to pop over because my brother was here earlier to drop off his kid for a bit. He's been giving her the cold shoulder for the past few days, so she figured she might catch him at my place. I wasn't exactly thrilled about her showing up and was about to tell her to hit the road, but then I saw how rough she looked, really sick and frail, and I just couldn't bring myself to shut the door on her. So my brother stepped up, didn't turn her away, but he was like, "Make it snappy, I've got to head to work soon." I ended up sticking around in the room while they talked, and honestly, it felt super awkward, like I was eavesdropping on a super private moment. My sister-in-law was basically begging my brother to agree to joint custody. She even said she'd managed to shake off that friend of hers because she never really wanted him involved. It was just her emotions spilling over that dragged him into this mess. She's coming to terms with the divorce, not planning to fight it, but she's desperate to keep seeing her kid. She laid it all out there, saying her cancer's taken a turn for the worse, hitting stage 3, according to her latest doctor's visit. It was a lot to take in, and there I was, feeling like a bit of an intruder in this whole intense family moment. So she's in a place where she wants to soak up every moment she can with her little boy. Watching my brother during the convo, you'd think he was about to flat out reject her request, given the hurt plastered all over his face. But what he said took me by surprise. He calmly laid it out that the best he could offer her now was supervised visits with their son. He didn't mince words, telling her straight that her months of lies had cut deep, and just because she was battling illness didn't mean he could simply let bygones be bygones. His own suffering was just as real, even if it wasn't visible for the world to see. He opened up about how he'd been her champion, batting away all those accusations of her being after his money or pulling some scam. But in the end, it turned out all those naysayers were right. She'd gone behind his back, cheating on him even though he'd been out there defending her honor. So now, for his peace of mind and for their son's well-being, he was ready to close this chapter and make a fresh start. My sister-in-law wasn't exactly thrilled with the conversation's direction, but my brother stood his ground. He laid it out for her. Either take the supervised visits once a week or duke it out in court. After a tense pause, she opted for the supervised visits, which, realistically, was probably what a court would have decided anyway. So now they've just got to hammer out the details and make it official. The divorce is still on the table, no changing that. As for what's next for my brother and my nephew, it's anyone's guess. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's all uphill from here. Thanks for watching. My sister-in-law decided to pop over because my brother was here earlier to drop off his kid for a bit. He's been giving her the cold shoulder for the past few days, so she figured she might catch him at my place. I wasn't exactly thrilled about her showing up and was about to tell her to hit the road, but then I saw how rough she looked, really sick and frail, and I just couldn't bring myself to shut the door on her. So my brother stepped up, didn't turn her away, but he was like, "Make it snappy, I've got to head to work soon." I ended up sticking around in the room while they talked, and honestly, it felt super awkward, like I was eavesdropping on a super private moment. My sister-in-law was basically begging my brother to agree to joint custody. She even said she'd managed to shake off that friend of hers because she never really wanted him involved. It was just her emotions spilling over that dragged him into this mess. She's coming to terms with the divorce, not planning to fight it, but she's desperate to keep seeing her kid. She laid it all out there, saying her cancer's taken a turn for the worse, hitting stage 3, according to her latest doctor's visit. It was a lot to take in, and there I was, feeling like a bit of an intruder in this whole intense family moment. So she's in a place where she wants to soak up every moment she can with her little boy. Watching my brother during the convo, you'd think he was about to flat out reject her request, given the hurt plastered all over his face. But what he said took me by surprise. He calmly laid it out that the best he could offer her now was supervised visits with their son. He didn't mince words, telling her straight that her months of lies had cut deep, and just because she was battling illness didn't mean he could simply let bygones be bygones. His own suffering was just as real, even if it wasn't visible for the world to see. He opened up about how he'd been her champion, batting away all those accusations of her being after his money or pulling some scam. But in the end, it turned out all those naysayers were right. She'd gone behind his back, cheating on him even though he'd been out there defending her honor. So now, for his peace of mind and for their son's well-being, he was ready to close this chapter and make a fresh start. My sister-in-law wasn't exactly thrilled with the conversation's direction, but my brother stood his ground. He laid it out for her. Either take the supervised visits once a week or duke it out in court. After a tense pause, she opted for the supervised visits, which, realistically, was probably what a court would have decided anyway. So now they've just got to hammer out the details and make it official. The divorce is still on the table, no changing that. As for what's next for my brother and my nephew, it's anyone's guess. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's all uphill from here. Thanks for watching.